What's up, everybody? I'm David Hain. Welcome to episode 99 of the A to D from Addict to Disciple podcast. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, follow, and share the link with your friends, or click on the support link in this episode's description. Your donation of any amount could change a life. When we come back, we'll get into this episode entitled Dealing with Negative Emotions. Welcome back to episode 99 of the A to D from Addict to Disciple podcast, entitled Dealing with Negative Emotions. I want to give a big welcome to my friends in recovery from the U.S., South Africa, and Australia for their participation in this group session. I'd like to do an episode in response to questions I've been getting from listeners dealing with negative emotions and how do they handle them in recovery. I really believe your input will be valuable in encouraging many. So here's your question for today. What are the feelings that you do not like to have? And how do you deal with these emotions when they surface? Eddie, would you like to open the group today? Sure, David. I love these questions. Phew. So many emotions, both negative and positive. But the worst to experience for me is anger, disappointment, and frustration. This is when the devil really becomes a liar. Questions. Is it all worth it? Feelings that it's easier to just let go, easier to just give in, to give up, to throw in the towel. No one appreciates what you have to go through to stay sober. Then I draw deep, very, very deep, into my true character, thinking of all the people I would hurt if I gave up now, how much I had achieved, how far I had come, but more importantly, I remind myself that I made a promise to Christ, and that was more than enough to keep me committed to getting through this. Jesus, turn on the light. Great start, Eddie. I like how you draw deep into your true character to overcome anger, disappointment, and frustration, and how that no one really appreciates what you have to go through to stay sober. Gary, what's your take on negative emotions? David, negative emotions, if you let them, can be very demoralizing in recovery. Left to run free, these emotions can also be overwhelming and damaging, and they derail efforts to sustain recovery. What I've noticed with myself is that a deluge of regrets keep surfacing. Regrets of time wasted and broken relationships and missed opportunities. And all these are contributing toward a depressive state of mind, along with feelings of hopelessness that I have to deal with. I felt that as if I just wanted to throw in the towel on many occasions, but there was just too much damage done. How do I deal with these negative emotions? Guys, I make a point of sitting down and addressing my situation. The hard truth, which I do without infusing emotion into it. I typically find out that my situation is not actually the lost cause that I'd made it out to be. So my way of dealing with negative emotions, David, is to reject them outright as they surface and never make decisions about my life dependent on my emotions, even partially. I replace negative thoughts with positive ones. It's a process that I'm establishing in my recovery. Great word, Gary. It's so important to sit down, take a deep breath, and review our situation after we have settled our emotions down a bit. Dante? Yeah, David, I totally agree with Gary. I pause for prayer and then try to take an outsider's look in on my actions and my response to those actions and how I emotionally feel about them, as well as my emotional reaction to what happens to me. You see, I do not like feeling rejected or left out. I fear rejection so much that I will run scenarios in my mind that have not even happened and simulate how I would respond to them. This, in a way, helps me feel more comfortable. It also can be destructive, though, as I typically head down a darker path. I have to catch myself and exit from that destructive thought pattern. Over time, I've learned to sit down with my negative emotions and try to better understand why I feel the way I do and whether that is justifiable or not. The time of processing of these negative emotions can be rather overwhelming without the right reminders and mental practice. I again implore anyone hearing this that for me the Word of God is the greatest weapon and tool to obtain a right and righteous mind. I work to continually set my mind on things above and not things in the here and now. It is only with a vertical perspective that I can have proper understanding of the here and now. Wow. Thanks, Dante. Great stuff. Charlie, how do you handle your negative feelings? David, the feelings I don't like to have are feelings of being left out, feelings of powerlessness, feelings of not being listened to, feelings of not being in control, feelings of being overly happy, and feelings of being way down low sad. Feelings of being powerless hit me often, and it's a big part of my disease when I'm not accepting that powerlessness. I start running in fear and chasing my tail for a way to fix it, and it just keeps going and going until I let go. I must accept the situation for what it is and move on. The feeling of being left out is a big one for me. When I'm feeling left out or not cared about, my illness is in full swing. Dealing with abandonment issues and the spirit of rejection is something I'm starting to learn how to process and work through. I don't like that feeling when I start to attack others from the trauma moments that haunt me and from when I was a kid. I don't like the feeling of not being in control. This is different than being powerless. These are things that I can change or make decisions to take care of, but yet I can't put my thoughts and actions together to get it done. It often leads to anxiety and me beating myself up. Procrastination and laziness are often the barriers that I must work through. Feeling left out or like no one really cares that I'm involved, or feeling like I don't make a difference is a nightmare. I'm often in a room with people I know who think I'm a new guy, and I can be in a room full of people and the next day no one knew I was there. The feelings of being overly happy and then really down low are exhausting. It makes me feel like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde all wrapped up in one person, in one day, or even in one moment. Emotional intelligence is important to me in my recovery. We can retrain our brains and detach from these thoughts and feelings and keep it at a feeling of love, peace, and self-control. Shaw, Charlie, thanks for being so vulnerable about your feelings. Adam, what's your key as you think about negative feelings? David, the big one for me is the feeling of frustration. It makes me on edge and it makes me want to get high. It's so easy to let it take me to a place of anger, and when I'm angry, I tend to use. Anger is a huge trigger for me, and I will get to the point. I want to get high to calm down. Anger tends to make me forget about the consequences and let everything go and let the volcano erupt. Whew. So true, Adam. Anger can easily take us to places we would never go because it breaks our peace. Harry, what do you think about this? Well, David, the feelings I hate to have are embarrassment and resentment with some of the things I did in the past while in active addiction. I sometimes have flashbacks and I get cold shivers and sometimes break down in tears or total disgust of myself still to this day. When these emotions and flashbacks occur, I stop, sit down, and pull myself together by telling myself that I have been forgiven. I've confessed and repented for these things, and I'm no longer captive to my addiction. My late pastor always reassured me that I have been set free, and I just need to stay honest about my wrongdoings and accept the forgiveness and live in victory. Thanks, Harry. It's so important to know that we have been forgiven and set free from our past. Ben, would you like to close us out for today? Sure, David. I think one of the main reasons I became addicted and embraced that lifestyle was the escape that drugs offered me. If I'm honest, it totally numbed me out to the point I didn't feel anything, and that's where I wanted to be. Why I wanted to escape reality so bad is still sort of a mystery to me. I don't know if I just didn't like myself, if I hadn't received much affirmation growing up, or what it was. But now, by the grace of God, standing on nearly 2 decades of sobriety and recovery, if I'm honest, I still have those moments of being overwhelmed now with just normal responsibilities and the need to be the guy that God has created now, a motivator, a person who speaks into other people's lives. However, it's very easy to step out of that place of truth and calm and get back to being a performer again. Bottom line, I need grace all day, every day, because without it, I don't care how many years of sobriety I have, I'm a wreck waiting to relapse. Shaw. So true, Ben. We really should be focused not on how long we've been clean and sober, but how close are we to the next relapse. And that's why it's so key for me to say that we need to be able to manage our negative emotions before they take us to those places. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening to this episode of the A to D from Addict to Disciple podcast. If you would like to join an online group or get one-on-one counseling to help you process your negative feelings, please message me on the link in this podcast or get in touch with me by email at davidfromatod@gmail.com or go to my website www.fromatod.org and click on the contact page. You can also keep in touch with what we're doing in From A to D by following me on Instagram at DavidFromA2D. Tune in Monday for our next episode, and as always, stay safe and stay strong.